Hello, so welcome back. So in the last video tutorial, we were able to do this, okay, refresh the details inside our homepage, okay. So when we go into the to-do scope model here, okay, we came to add the notifier listeners here, okay. Now you if you remember in the last video tutorial, I was having some challenges. So I came to write this line of code here. Okay. So I will just go ahead and then explain to you why we were getting these challenges. Okay. So the reason was because you see it wasn't from our code, but then these are variables, okay, here. They are variables, okay. And anytime that you declare as we declare the variable here, we assign what empty list to them. Okay, so they are variables. Now when we press the control save, okay, and then our app refreshes, we lose our data. For example, when I go to the home, okay, and then I press on the control save here, we were losing our data before, okay. So we came inside the home page here, and then we wrote this line of code instead of this, okay. So we commented this line of code, and then we were working with this one, okay, so that we fix that error. But then initially this was the error that we were getting. Let me come back here and then do this. So now when I save this, you see that everything is gone as if nothing was fetched. When I reload for the first time, let's reload again. When I reload, it works, okay. So it works, but then when I come inside here again and I press on Control S to save the information again, this reload, okay, hot reload, and then I get empty data here. And now there was nothing wrong with the code, okay. There was nothing wrong with the code, okay. The reason why we are getting the empty list here is because when we press the Control save, the whole app reloads, okay, which is the scope the thing, the whole app reloads, and then the to do scope model. Initially we set everything to empty before we come and fetch. Now the fetch to do's never runs when we do what we press the control S, okay. So we won't see anything here, but our code works fine. So there was no need for us to even comment this line of code and come and do this. There was no need, okay. So I'm just going to take the code back to how it was. Like I'm going to take this back to how it was before I commented it, and then I'll show you something. Now, when we do something like this, which was what we did in the last video, you can see that it's coming. That makes sense, but then this is even going to cause problem in our app if we have a lot of list of to-dos. The reason why this is going to cause a problem is that when I come into the debug console here, let me go into the to-do, and then this is where we are fetching, where we are fetching the tags. Okay, I want to print this thing. Okay, now I want to save it and show you something. Now you can see that as long as the thing is running, I'm seeing a lot of range errors, and then it is, oh sorry, I know, sorry, wait, let me bring it here. This is not the error that I want to get. Now resave the thing, clear. Yeah, now you can see that it is working all right, but then I'm getting what to do at the shop. That means this print method is being called so many times. Is always called, which is what, an infinite what loop. So this will continue to call the this. That means our fetch tags method keeps on running. Why is that it keeps on running? The reason why it keeps on running is because when we go into the home page, we are calling this model.fetch all here, okay. And inside this model.fetch all, when we call this, when we come to the to-do scope mode, we have something here called the notifier listeners. And this thing is important, which I said in the video, that it is known as what, set state. Okay, something like set state. So it will always rebuild the thing. Now, when this notifier listener is called here, it rebuilds what, the list view. And when it rebuilds the list view, it will always call what, the build method to what, rebuild. Now, when this method is rebuilt, now the page now rebuilds again. But this build method, as long as this build method is called again, then anything inside the build method must also be called again. So in a sense, the build method will be called, and it will call this fetch all again. And then fetch all also has what, a notifier listener, which will also call the build method again. Okay. and so on and so on. So this is calling this is calling this, and then it will keep on looping up and down. This call this, and then it will continue looping. So if you look at it, that means you can see from here, check this thing, you can see that it's moving up. That means it's still, it is an endless loop. Okay, so it's being called over and over and over again. It doesn't end. Okay, so the best solution was what we did before. So what we did was, there was nothing wrong with what we did. It was because of the reload, the hot reload. It set everything to what, the empty list that we initially set. So that wasn't our problem. Okay, so let's just change back to let's just change back quickly to how it was, which is the home page. Okay, and then in the home page, so this one is not needed, so I will have to remove this to stop the endless loops, because we don't want something like that. So I will save it here, and now I don't have the code printed, so now I have to open this. Well, okay, so this was the right thing to do, even though if I do it I don't see it, but when I reload, it will come. Okay, now it comes, but then when I press on Control S, it will go off. This is because of the hot reload. It's not because of our code. It was because of the hot reload. So if I'm going to just close the app from my phone here, so I'll close the app. Okay, then I'll stop it from debugging, so you can see that this is gone. Now if I come and then open the app, you will see that this will call what? This will call in the list. Now you see that the list is showing. So it wasn't because we didn't write the code well, it was because of the hot reload. You get a point. So that was the reason why. So now let's work on how we are going to do what? Get what the to do items in here. Okay. So we know that in the to do items, we can go into the to do scope here, scope model here, and then we have the fetch to dos. Okay, now when we have the fetch to dos, we know that this will fetch all the to dos items here, and then we will have it inside what, the let me just quickly write a code here like we did before here. Okay, so let's write an empty let's see here, which um empty to do here, and then I'll say my to do's, and then I'll put empty here so that we can use that. It's not required, but then you can do it that way. And then I'll put that one here, and then after everything is done, we want to now assign my we want to assign to do's. Let's say to do's, my to do's there. Okay, now when we do this, then that means we are now, after adding everything to my to-dos here. Okay, we are now passing that list that we have. Okay, because this will now not be an empty list. We now assign that list towards the to-do list that we have here. Okay, so that's what I wanted to add for now. So now we know that everything that we fetch from this API endpoint here, okay, will come into the list. So I'll just open it again, and then I'll put it here, and then we know that everything that we fetch here will come into this what, into this list. Okay, after it has been added to this list, we assign it to the underscore to do's. Okay, so how do we fetch to do's for a particular task? When we look at this, we have a tax ID here. Okay, tax ID, and then we have tax ID 1 and then tax ID 2. So we can write another method here. Let's say void get tax to do's. Okay, so we are getting the tax for the to do's. And what do we need? We need the what? We need the let's say we need the, let's do it a string. Okay, we need a string, and then we say ID. So we need an ID for the tax. Okay, because when you look at the code here, we can see that we have what, a tax ID, and it is what, a string. You get the point. So we need a string ID here. Now with this string ID, we want to check and then fetch all the items that are what, all the to-dos that are related to that particular tax ID. So how are we going to do that? After this has been called, this fetch to-dos has been called, and we know that the moment the app loads, we call the fetch all. So automatically we fetch all the what to do's. So we will have it in this list. Okay. So when we come down here, okay, when we come down here, then I can do what to do's, okay, and then we can run through the to do's items, okay. So for example, let's just create a list here, and then let's say a list of to do's here, okay, to do, and then let's say all tax to do's here, and then we can put an empty list here. So now we can loop through what the to do's here. So let's just write for, okay, and then we can use the for here, and then we can say for um int, let's say I can use for int I, and then I is less than what the to do's, okay, you know that we have that dot length here, and then I plus plus here. So we are looping through the to do's. Now when we loop through the to do's, what do you want to do? We want to check if the tax ID is equal to the tax that we are what, the tax ID that we pass here. Okay, so I will just go inside and say if, okay, the let's say to do's underscore is supposed to be underscore here. And I go here and I say if to do's, okay, dot length, sorry, not dot length, if to do's dot, sorry, yeah, I put the I here. Okay, so I have underscore to do's, and then I have my I here, which was fetch the element for me, and then I want to check the ID, if the ID is equal to what, the ID that we've been passed there. Okay, so we are checking that as we are looping through the to-dos, we want to check for all the to-dos which has the tax ID that we are passing. So it's supposed to be tax ID, not ID. Okay, so with this one here, now we can just make sure that if this condition is true, then it means that this to do belongs to the what, the tax that we pass the ID inside. Okay, so now I can come here and I can do something like all tax to do's dot add, and then I can add that to do. I don't know if you get my I think it's supposed to be to do's, add the to do's, and then I want to put I here. I hope you get what I'm trying to do here. So when we are done with this one, then we want to return all tax to do's. Okay, so now I can say return all tax to do's here. And we have to change this to what, a list, because the return type is now what, a list. So we have to change this to list and then to do. You get a point. So now this is working. So now we can get a particular what, we can get the to do's for a particular tax here by using this method. So let's go back to the home page. Okay, and inside the home page, we know that when we click on an item, it comes here. Okay, so the logic is when I click on a tax here, it should take me to this page, but it should give me the chance to what, edit the tax. Okay, but when I click on the plus sign here, it will take me to the same page, but this time it will ask me to what, add. But then we are working on the fetch first before we work on the what, post. Okay, so let's work on how we are going to even display the to-dos in this part. Okay, so when we come here, I think in the where is that page, the page is what, task page. Now when we come into the task page, we know that we have a list view somewhere there's a list view, where is the code? Let's check for the list view. Yeah, so there's a list view here which we have empty list view here. Okay, because we deleted everything from there, and then we had the to do item here. Code for the to do item is here. Okay, so let's go back to the where is the code, the code for the tax page. Okay, so the tax page. So now when we come here, we know that we want the list view to have access to the scope model, so that we can get access to this method. Where is it, this get task to do's. Okay, so how are we going to do that? We can wrap the scaleful widget. Okay, I want to wrap the whole scaleful widget, not just this list view, even though I can just do it for this list view, but I want to wrap the whole scaleful widget so that anywhere that we need this scope model, we don't have to be wrapping each single item with a scope model descendant. So I can wrap the whole scaleful widget once and for all before the scope model. So I'll go ahead and do scope model descendant. Oh, so not scope model descendant. Okay, like I explained in the other video, scope model descendant, and then I have build oh, I have build context, and then context here widget child, and then I have what main model like we did before, main model, and then model here. Okay, so just like we did before, and I have to import what the main model. So import main model, and I think the error is gone for now. So I'll return the code that I cut from there. So return, and then I'll paste this here. Okay, so now all the widgets inside the skillful widget has out access to what the scope model, because I wrap the whole skillful widget with what the scope model descendant. So when I come to the list view, I can use the scope model inside. Okay, so now let's go to the list view here. Now we know that when this code run, okay, we want to get for a particular what um task. We want to get order to this for a particular task. So when we come to this page, okay, we want to accept an ID. Okay, so final string, let's say tax ID here. So when we do that, I want to just remove this code here. I don't need it here. And then I want to do this dot tax ID here. So that means whenever we are coming to this page, we want to pass in the tax ID. Okay. And we can use this tax ID to write some code here. So let's come here. Okay. Tax ID is here. We have this tax ID here. We have the other part there. So what are we going to do here? We are going to go into the home page where we click on the list item, and then we come to this page. Okay, so here we have this get started data. We go to the tax I here. This time we want to pass in what the tax ID. So which is what tax ID, and then we have to do something like model.tax. You remember what we did here to display model.tax here, and then we have the index like the way we did here, but this time we are passing in what the ID. So that means whenever we click on this, we will get what the ID. Yeah. Now with this ID here, we can now decide to do what? Load the tax for that particular ID when we come into the tax page. So when we come into the tax page here, inside the scope model descendant, I can check if the widget dot what tax ID is not equal to null. Okay, if it is not equal to null, then I want you to what get tax to do's, and then I want to pass in the widget dot tax ID here. Else I want you to put just null here. So now this will fetch me a list here or nothing at all. Okay, so I have to save it in a variable here, so that I will say list, and then I will do dot to do here, and then I'll say my to do's here. Okay, so let's import the to do and let's see what happens. So we have this. So we are checking if the tax ID is not null. The reason why I'm checking if the tax ID is not null is because not every time that we are going to click on what the list item to open that page, we are going to sometimes click on the floating action button before we go to that page. And then if that is the case, we are not going to pass in any tax ID. So this will return null. So we have to make sure that we check before we use it on what the model.get task to dos. Okay, so we have the null here. So if it is null, then we want the list to be null here. Okay, so that's a perfect check, and that is odd. Okay, now that means we have this what? If it is not okay, let's not put null here. Even this one is not even okay. So let's just put empty there because we are going to use the list in our what? In our how do we call it? In our list view. Okay, so we come here, and then now inside our list view here, we also want to check if the widget is not if widget is not equal to null. Okay, these are some checks so that we don't get errors in our code. The reason we want to just check if the widget dot tax id, not just widget, so the tax id is not equal to null, then we want to do what? We want to do the list view. So that means if this is not equal to null, that means we've clicked on what? A tax item from the home page. But if it is null, that means we didn't click on that and we don't what even need that. Okay, so if that, then let me just even use this here. Sorry, let's just use it here rather. Okay, let me just leave it like that for now. So if this is not equal to null, I want to just do the same thing. I want to just put an empty list view here. Okay, so let's just do it this way. So if task id is not equal to null, then we are going to use what? A list view dot builder, because we have this list view dot builder here. List view dot builder here. Okay, with this one we don't want to we want to just take this one out for now. So with this list builder, we need what? That item builder here. And then with this item builder, we also want to do build contest. Okay, and then we want to say contest widget, and then we want the child here, and then we also want sorry, I'm thinking as if it's a scope model descendant. So it's here, and then int index. Sorry. So now I have this, and I also have the item count. Okay, so the item count is going to be the my introduce that we fetch. Okay, so my introduce here, and then we have to put it here, my introduce, and then we are going to say my introduce dot length. Okay, and here this time we are going to return what? Return a what? To do item. I think here to do item here. And inside this to do item, we know that this code has already been written here. To do item here. Okay, if you remember, the to do item is already here. And with this one here, we can now pass in the to do item. Okay, so with this one, we can now call this my introduce underscore here, my underscore my introduce here, dot not dot. Okay, we put here and then we put the index there, and then we say dot, and then we say to do info. Okay, we put in the to do info there. Yeah, we put in the to do info there. So we have this. Okay, and then I think everything should work. So I will just I think let's see how this is going to work. Let me just save the whole code again, and then let me now run the code. You remember I stopped the code, so I'll run the code, and then we'll see how this will work. So I'm running the code again so that all changes will be saved. Okay, so let's run it and see again what this will do. Mm. Okay, so let's just wait for the thing to complete. You can skip the video to where it completed. I think you can just do that. So I'm just waiting for it to just complete. All right, so it's coming. Is coming. Let's see. It's just installing. All right. So I think it's trying to load, and we have it here. So now when I click on this, I want to see all the, when I click on the first item, I want to see the to-dos under that. So I click on that, and you can see that we have some buy vegetables, get some fresh fruits here. When I go back and I click on at work, we have only one what to do under that. So you see how we can use the scope model, and then when we use the scope model, we can write methods here, and then we can access them using the scope model descendant. Okay, so anywhere we wrap the scope model descendant, everything under this scope model descendant can use the model. And as long as we have the model, we can access any methods, okay, that we have for the for that scope model. You get my point. So I will leave the video here, and then in the next video we will do something else. I think now that we are done with the fetch, okay, and see how the fetch works for all of them, then we can go ahead and then do the post, okay, and then we can continue to do a lot of things there. So I will leave the video here, and I'll see you in the next video tutorial.